It's a hot topic of conversation currently going on, and that's around what people can do with mobile commerce. You know, everyone's talking about e-commerce, and for the last 20 years, you've got the likes of eBay, Amazon, that have really done some awesome things on e-commerce. What's happening on the mobile commerce space? And it really, for me, when I was starting to prepare this presentation, and everything indicated to one particular point in time, and it was in 1997, it started with a vending machine in Helsinki in Finland, where a couple of guys decided to install a couple of handsets and 2 vending machines, and using SMS to be able to pay for a code coming out of it. We now fast forward, and that's really interesting when it comes to mobile. When you look at mobile, a good friend of mine, Andrew McHenry, said to me when I started out in this industry, 1 year in mobile is like 7 years in any other industry. And that's really how it's fast tracks. And we're in the age of swiping and tapping and go. We've seen the likes of Square, and what's happening with Square, in particular in the States, where you know your phone has now become a POS device. We've seen now what is happening with Tap and Go, where you've got NFC, or near field communications, where people have the ability to tap their smartphone on a particular device and pay for something. You know, this is something that is revolutionizing the way the consumer is purchasing, the way the consumer is engaging with particular brands. And that's where we're sitting now. We're sitting in the ability to be able to tap and pay. No longer are we walking around with huge wallets. Our wallet is sitting within our cell phone. But what's obviously very, very important, the industry is so huge. I mean, if you look at Gartner, for example, they're predicting by the end of this year, 212 million users will be conducting M-payments. And that's really the basis of what M-commerce is the ability to be able to do payments from your mobile phone, whatever the product or service that it is. I mean, if you look at the revenue projections, for example, by 2016, Gartner is saying that literally 448 million people will be using M-payment type solutions, generating revenue of $617 billion. It's a growth industry. But what's important for us is that we're in Africa, and we need to understand that there are certain challenges, but also opportunities when it comes to mobile payments and mobile commerce in Africa. So across Africa, 90% of all phones are mobile devices, probably as high as 95%. We're sitting at 65% mobile penetration. We've got around 700 million mobile connections. It's active SIMs in Africa. That's going to go up to about 735 million by the end of the year. We're sitting with 90% annual growth, 26 million quarterly additions that are coming online. But this is the important one, 96% of all consumers in Africa are prepaid. Okay? If you look at Airtel, for example, which has 17 operations across Africa with 55 million subscribers, their prepaid subscriber base is sitting at 99%. That's the market we're dealing with. And that particular market is spending less than $7 a month on mobile services, just over 50 Rand. That's voice, SMS, WAP, all services combined together. In some countries, it's as low as $2. And this is a very interesting one. Nokia still sits at 65% market share. And that's based on some estimations from various platforms. But Nokia is still very, very relevant across the African continent, and for a couple of reasons. One, it actually is a pretty good device. You guys remember when you had your old 3210s, 3110s, when you got like 4 or 5 days battery life. Still now, that is still very, very relevant. When in large parts of Africa, there is power shortages. So you don't have, in some cases, don't have regular access to electricity. The next thing is the actual quality build of that device. Nokia phones really don't break. And that's really what set them up in the African continent. So when you're looking about M-commerce across the continent, it's really driven by one particular example, and that's mobile money and mobile money solutions. And there are numerous examples of this. This is a billboard from Kampala, where you can use mobile money solutions to be able to pay for water. I mean, a good friend of mine told me now, Andrew, he said in Kenya, using M-Pesa, you can pay for your taxi. I mean, this is what mobile payments, mobile money, is starting to allow consumers in Africa to be able to do. So when you look at mobile money, there's a number of, it's always driven from mobile operators. There are other entities that are starting to get into the mobile money bandwagon. For instance, you've got M-Pesa, we've got MTN, Orange have their own version of mobile money, Tigo, Airtel. A lot of mobile operators are starting to embrace the mobile money bandwagon. And this is really what's setting the pace globally, and that's M-Pesa. I mean, it's really, if there's no mobile commerce presentation that's incomplete without a reference to M-Pesa, because it's that good. And that's the ability now, 5 years ago when it was introduced, it now made the unbanked bankable. people could now do transactions using a baseline mobile device. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, look here, if you go into Nairobi, into many parts of Kenya, you're always seeing M-Pesa signs all over the place. So when I looked at M-Pesa, I wanted to give you the scale. So when you look at Safaricom is the mobile operator that runs the M-Pesa platform in Kenya. They've got a subscriber base, when I checked the stats in March, it was about 19 million connections. M-Pesa constituted 15 million connections. It's 78% of the Safaricom base uses the M-Pesa solution. That's phenomenal. When you look at the revenue and what its scale is, one estimate from The Economist puts total transactions in terms of contribution to GDP in Kenya of 11%. So that's what M-Pesa is contributing to the economy in terms of transactions. It's a powerful tool. Another interesting one is what a lot of people are talking about. Let's bank the unbanked. In terms of financial inclusion, Safaricom say that now Kenya is now sitting at 80% in terms of people that now have access to some sort of banking infrastructure. 75% of that is coming from M-Pesa. M-Pesa empowered people to be able to use mobile commerce solutions. But let's go back to South Africa. And in South Africa, we have a great example, and that's FNB. FNB, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, really started the market, and that was with in contact. The ability to be able to see what is going on in your account using text-based messaging. To give you context of the size, Michael Jordan tweeted last year that up to August, in terms of the financial year from August 2010 to August 2011, 900 million in-contact messages were sent, protecting people against fraud on their accounts. It's a global example of how e-commerce and how technology is now impacting consumer use. USSD. This is a very, very old technology, but something that's still very relevant in the African continent. Any phone can use USSD. People use USSD to do airtime top-ups, to do please call me's. FNB had really embraced that and used that. People can actually do mobile banking services via USSD. One estimate from a survey saw that 95% of cell phone banking services are done via USSD on the FNB. I mean, that's impressive because of its non-reliance on the phone to be able to do it. It can work on any sort of phone. The next one is VC Pay. This is a very interesting. This comes out of a development house in Bryanston, who have created an app where you can create a virtual credit card on the fly. So let's paint a scenario. You're sitting at you want to go buy something, maybe buy some shoes, but you're a bit nervous of the retailer and you don't want to use your credit card because of fraud. You fire up this app. You can issue yourself a one-time virtual credit card. You then, based on that, give the person, the retailer, the details of your credit card, the transaction goes through. The credit card falls away. In the States, this particular service has been being used by over 2 million people. It's a very good service, and it's South African, it's built in South Africa. Then another one, which is a very popular one, and that's Turkey called Mobicel, built by the guys in Presence Digital in Cape Town. In June this year, almost 300,000 unique visitors visited the Mobi site and did transactions off it. You have the ability now from a Mobi site to be able to book a movie ticket using your credit card. I mean, that's absolutely awesome. You don't have to go sit in a queue to do this. And it can be done from a basic mobile internet phone. This is the Samsung E250. In South Africa, approximately 4% of subscribers still use this one device. This is the most popular WAP-enabled device in South Africa. The next one is from Price Check. It's now, you've got an application where you can actually cross-reference and check different pricing on different products. So this is, for example, looking at an iPad. So now I've got 12 different retailers that are all selling this variation of the iPad. I can now check and choose where the best deal is. Is it close to me? Can I share it with my friends? This is not taking commerce to the level of a device and we're creating a social engagement. So in international examples, this is my favorite example, and it's Angry Birds. Angry Birds is a phenomenon. It was the company that developed it, was a company called Rovia. It was their 51st app that they developed. So they had 50 apps before that didn't really have great success, and then Angry Birds hit the market. It's done over 1 billion downloads. I mean, that's epic in terms of the scale and size and the attractiveness of this particular app. But what's interesting is what e-commerce services are being created around the app. So, for example, in terms of revenue generation, Rovia decided for iPhone users are more likely to do a purchase of the app once off. So pay the 99 cents for $4.99 for a version of the app, but don't receive any advertising. Android users are more inclined to download the free version, but have advertising served into an application. I'm an Android user, it's a Galaxy S3, proud of it. And for example, there's a banner that came up and it's for wrestling superstars. Clicked on it and I went in 350. Now I have the ability to start downloading content. And that's where e-commerce comes in, is the ability to buy merchandise, buy goods, buy services from your mobile device. But Angry Birds took it one step further. They decided, no, we can turn this into merchandising. And that's where the power of the Angry Birds brand comes in. In terms of revenues generated, Angry Birds by itself generated in 2011 over $100 million worth of revenue. Okay? 30% of it was from merchandising. People buying Angry Birds slops, towels, or fluffy toys. That's where now mobile commerce is now translated into the retail real world, where it has that impact now. Other great examples of e-commerce is the ability now from an e-boarding pass perspective. You can go and get your e-boarding pass on your phone, be able to check in, get through airports. We know what a step that is. We can now do that from our mobile phones using QR codes. Integrated systems. Lufthansa are doing this very successfully overseas. Certain technologies can only work in certain markets. And that's very important to always remember when you deploy any sort of service. Always understand the mechanics of your market and what your market can do and how advanced or what the uptake is for a particular service will be in your market. But this is Africa. Could QR codes work in this example? That is a shot from Nigeria in a marketplace. Not necessarily yet, but the time is coming. Smartphones are coming into the market. $50, $70 smartphones are starting to come in. People are starting to learn and see the power of what their phone devices can actually do. So just to leave you with a sort of a closing thought, our focus should be not on emerging technologies, but on emerging cultural practices. And that's so important in deploying any sort of service across the African continent. Thank you very much.